Hello, hello. Welcome back to tutorial number 2 here. We are going to, in this tutorial, uh, go over some more basics when it comes to Python here. We're going to go over variables, and yeah, we're just going to go over basically assigning uh, certain data to a specific variable. So, I'll just demonstrate for you guys here. So, as we demonstrated in the last video, we set x equal to 5, or whatever we set it to, or like 32.4, right? So basically what you do in order to set a variable, um, think of a variable like a label. So in Python, we use the equal sign label, this one right here, which is known as the assignment operator, of course. But this is how you assign a value to a variable. So set this equal to 2, and then you print x. You're gonna get 2, as we done before, right? This is just stuff we did in the last tutorial. But yeah, now we're gonna go into undefined variables. So an undefined variable, cannot start with a digit. So as we said in the last one, if there's a variable that's undefined, so like x is equal to 5, and then print y, right? So y is undefined, not defined, right? So you're gonna get a traceback error. Yeah, that's basically that. And then we're gonna go over variable types. So there's a function in Python here. So a function, what is a function? So you pass something into a function. Let's just call it. We're not going to go into actual Python functions yet, but I'm just going to give you like a brief explanation of what like a function is. So a function, let's just call it f of x, is equal to x. So let's just call it let's call it x actually. So f of x is equal to x. What do we know this is function? This is just a linear function, right? So whatever you pass in to x, whatever that number is, it's just going to be a straight line. It's just going to look like this, right? Whereas if you were to, let's just do like x squared, and going back to your high school parabolas, you might be able to tell that this is going to give you a parabola, or like a U shape. Yeah. So a function it takes in an input and it spits out an output, right? Yeah. So there are functions built into Python. One of them, as we kind of discussed earlier, we were talking about types. So in Python, a type determines the operations that it supports. So an example could be like, does it have a length? Or it defines the possible values for that object or object type. But yeah, I'll do some demonstrations for you. We did this a little bit in the last video, but I didn't go much into depth. So, for example, as we talked about in the last video, we have int. Int could be like 5, and then string, which is equal to like dog, or it's called dog. And then a float, like 2.4, and then yeah, remember these. Yeah, so what you could do here, so in Python there's a function, we have a function called type. What you're going to do here is, in order to check what type this is, let's just type in int. Just type in int. If you're following along here, just type in int into this and print. See what happens. And what do you think is going to happen? If it says type, as I said earlier about Python being a pretty self-explanatory, not self-explanatory, but like pretty straightforward when it comes to text and understanding it, what do you think that's going to type? If you guessed, it's going to print the type of what that actual variable is set to. Like, what is int? What is this? What did we talk about? What was that? So what do you think that's going to print? If you run it, it's going to print class int. So of type int. Here, let me get rid of these. You might just be like, oh, that just does that because that's there. Print x now. Class int. Again, do the same thing, but let's do it for like y. And then a. So let's do y. Type string or str, same thing. And then a. Float, right? So as we discussed earlier, these are going to be things that get printed when you print type. Excuse me. Yeah. That's basically the gist of that. But you can also, in Python, there's a thing called casting. So in order to cast something, it basically means to change its type. So let's just say we have x. Let's just make a new variable called change type. I can't spell. Change type. And this is going to be equal to a float, but of type x. So think about this. What do we have in here? 5. What's going to go in here? 5. And what is a float? What is a float? This is the definition of a float. What do you think this is going to print out? So now if I were to print out change type into here, what do you think is going to happen? If you guessed that it's going to print out 5 on its own, then I'm sorry to tell you, you're wrong. But good guess. It's going to print out 5.0 because it changes it to a float. Now, if you were to do it to this one, what do you think is going to happen? A float, but it's already a float. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to stay the same. When you change it, it's basically like adding 2 positive numbers together. That makes sense. But it's not going to change. That was a bad analogy. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, it's not going to change. Anyways, now what do you think is going to happen if you were to cast it to y, to a string? Could not convert string to float. So that's one of the things you can't convert. Although, if you were to convert, let's just call it 5. See what I did there? You change this to a number. Python knows to convert this, since it's a number, since it's of type int technically, with a string wrapper. Python knows it can convert that because it can convert an int. So, sorry about that. Yeah, it converts it, and you are able to convert it to a float. You can also change it to int. You can put the same thing, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Now we're going to go into some arithmetic operations here. Actually, we'll save the arithmetic operations for the next video. But yeah, I appreciate you joining me for this tutorial. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.